In this channel here, I mostly talk about my admiration for fantasy and sci-fi narratives. Stories that make us wonder and ponder and widen our eyes in awe. But the truth is, I just can't resist a good story about love, especially romantic love. I enjoy feeling my heart beating faster and my eyes starting to tear up. And above all, it is a delight to feel my own internal love, recognizing that other love on the page or the screen. I've been fortunate enough to have experienced a lot of love in my life. I've lived some stories that could easily be turned into books and songs and movies. And yet, I feel disconnected from the genre that most people associate with stories about romantic love. Rom-coms, the romantic comedies. I understand that people experience the world differently, and it is perfectly possible that a lot of people encounter love just like that, just like rom-coms. But not me. I think my love also carries a little bit of that awe, that delicious wonder I find in fantasy and sci-fi. And there are stories out there for me. Tales that make my heart jump in recognition. It tells me, that is it. That is the love I feel too. Look how gorgeous it is. Those stories might be rarer than your usual rom-com, but every time I find one, I know it's made for people like me. One of those stories happened to not only have an enchanting narrative about falling in love, but also a beautifully woven world building that aids this theme, that adds a ton of unexpected nuance to how two people fell in love. And it happens to have one of my favorite narrative devices, which is a plot twist that happens because of the world building, which is unusual and always a blast for world building enthusiasts just like us. Let's talk about the world building in Kimi No Na Wa, or its English title, Your Name. Let's talk about how a fictional, unreal world can help us experience love that feels so real. World building is not a skill that you can improve just by reading about it or watching movies or playing games. You must create, you must try your hand, you must exercise your own imagination. And that is the whole point of this series here, the Worldbuilding Tower. Together we analyze lovely pieces of media with incredible world building, and from them I extract a single lesson that we can all try out, that we can all give our unique solutions to and improve as writers, as artists. This episode contains severe spoilers for Kimi No Na Wa, so don't watch it before you watch the movie. It's really, really brilliant, and it's available in so many different platforms. Do yourself a favor and go watch the movie first. It's really cool. Let's talk about Kimi No Na Wa and world-building love. In this story, both the narrative and the world-building are working towards the same main theme, just love. That's not always the case. For example, the Discworld series shares one big world-building, one that it's all about imagination and wonder, while its many books have different narratives with varied themes, from gender inequality to the movie industry. Is the Discworld any worse for that? Absolutely not. I love the Discworld. But Kimi No Na Wa's consistency is useful for our learning purposes here. I'm first gonna give you the basic gist of the story, then I'm gonna jump to my favorite scene, okay? This is a narrative about a city boy and a countryside girl falling in love. Simple. At first, they're focused on their differences, their gender differences, their lifestyle differences. But little by little, they start to realize that those are not really important, that this other person is so much more than those tiny details. That is the basis of the narrative. What the world building brings is that they meet by mysteriously swapping bodies from time to time. They get to know each other indirectly by living each other's lives part-time. which sounds very stupid when I describe it like that, doesn't it? And that's a good proof that execution is so much more important than high concept, because this movie is touching. Eventually, this boy and this girl decide to meet in person, and this is where things get complicated. And this is how we get to my favorite scene and to a world-building plot twist. God, I love world-building plot twists. When you write a story with good world-building, the truth is that you don't need to give it a purpose. You don't need to be deliberate. If you want your world to have dragons just because you think dragons are neat, you're allowed to do that. There are no inherent rules in art. But Kimi No Na Wa is a good example of the advantages of being deliberate, of being thematic. This world is an allegory to a real emotion. This boy and this girl are in love, and they make the decision to be together, to conquer the distance between them. And this is where the world-building plot twist comes in. They find out that they're not actually living at the same time. They're years apart from each other. And in his timeline, the latter timeline, she has been dead for years, killed by a natural disaster. The differences in lifestyle that was so important at the beginning of the movie and then became less and less and less relevant. Now they become insignificant. They crumble to dust. Now there is a chasm between those two people, that even the distance between their homes, which was so important just a couple of scenes ago, now this is completely irrelevant by the sheer comparison to this new challenge. And this is how I felt love before. I fell in love with people who happened to live or who happened to move hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of kilometers away from me. And especially when I was young, just like the protagonist, this distance felt insurmountable. But there is this one scene when they both go to the top of this sacred, world-building relevant mountain, and for 1 minute, despite this reality-bending challenge, they meet. The love narrative is there. There's something about their expressions, their cute little interaction. This boy's reckless, hopeless, stupid romanticism that feels very much like mine. But there's also world building. A world that opens a tiny window. And that's a powerful allegory for another side of how I've experienced romance in my life. When you find somebody special, it feels like you've found the single needle in a million haystacks. There's just no word to describe the sensation, but there is metaphor. And this world here, this fleeting world-building moment is better at expressing this preciousness than any needle and haystack comparison I could ever make. Kimi No Na Wa grabs a real-world emotion, a particularly potent facet of love, and creates a world where it is easy for everyone to imagine themselves feeling it. This is powerful storytelling. I want to write like that. Love is hard to write. Love is hard in general. And there's something to be said about a world building that facilitates those complicated emotions. So, let's learn from it. This exercise here is going to be specifically about romantic love. And as I mentioned before, it can be tricky to write about it. You might sound stiff or cheesy or melodramatic. It's complicated, so be ready for a challenging exercise. When I chose to talk about that scene on top of the mountain, I talked about two different facets of love. This insurmountable distance and also this feeling of preciousness when you meet somebody who's really special to you. Not all love stories will contain those two elements, and even Kimi No Na Wa has plenty of other elements like those, because love has many facets. Love is an emotion that pops up in a lot of different contexts. So our first task here is to choose one of them. an archetypical romantic situation you'd like to explore and add to your story. Of course, if you can draw from your own personal romantic experience, I'd encourage you to do so, but it's not necessary. Then we want to create a world building or a piece of world building that facilitates that facet of love. We want an allegory. Just like in Kimi No Na Wa, we want to create a world that will help our readers, our audience, to get there, to a very specific shape of love. The whole world is going to be designed to provoke that feeling, an allegorical world. Lastly, let's write a little piece of a tale, a couple of paragraphs, just so we can show how this world building would behave in action, in motion. Let's place a couple of characters there and see how they experience this world we just created. And quick tip and quick reflection, I've been trying to add those paragraph exercises to my videos lately because I feel I'm growing faster as a writer, as a world builder because of those. I think there's something there that pushes me to a little bit out of my comfort zone, and those have been very helpful. So I hope you agree. I hope you're also growing faster with them, and I hope to see your little paragraphs. And with that, we go to the last part of the video, which is my take on this exercise. Just one take out of infinite possibilities, because human imagination is boundless. And I'm very excited to see your worlds as well, your little paragraphs that will help you grow as a writer. Yes. So without further ado, let's make a world about love. The archetype of love I want to talk about today is the invitation. Something like the invitation for a date or for a weekend getaway. This moment of the invitation. Since I started writing more seriously, I've been paying more attention to the power of words. What do you create with the particular order of words you chose there? And invitations, romantic or not, are a prime example. The way you invite somebody to an experience changes the experience. And I want to create a world about that. A world full of cute classroom notes being exchanged. A world where, let's go, just the two of us. Let's go today, let's go right now. A world where this can be thoroughly experienced. To do that, I'm gonna propose a sort of a telepathic Snapchat origami magic system. In this world, you can grab a piece of paper and you can fold it. And as you do so, you can place an emotion there. Whoever unfolds that piece of paper will experience that emotion, though briefly and just one single time. It's like Snapchat. Once it's gone, it's gone. It is the norm that if you invite somebody to a date, you will use this technique. Because when you do so, you can also propose a vibe. Besides the written message, you can add emotional context to that invitation. You can add sweetness or lust or admiration. One of the facets of my own love is this invitation, is this anticipation to do something incredible with somebody special. And I think that piece of world building might ease people into this emotion, even if it's not a facet of love they experience very often. And there is something in the really, really powerful invitation that also carries that little bit of awe from fantasy and sci-fi. Let's see how it looks when it's in motion. Her fingers fumbled on top of the invitation. Of course she had been waiting for him to ask her out, waiting for weeks, but the paper she was holding had been so thoroughly folded that she didn't even know where to start opening it. She blushed as she looked up and saw the first drops of cold sweat running across his forehead. His nervousness gave her courage. She didn't want to give the wrong impression, so her fingers explored the interwoven pattern on the paper with more intention. It was gorgeous paperwork. Probably took him a while to get it right. As soon as she found the first fold, the whole thing started to unwrap, and her heart started to beat a little faster. As she read, "Since the very first question you asked me," she felt a tingle of adrenaline running up her spine, and with the next unfold, the words, I knew there was something special about you, about your curiosity. We're followed by a sense of discovery, exploration, like being far away from home. Her heart rate jumped again, just a tiny bit more than before. I'd like to share that hunger. I'd like to dive headfirst into the world like you do. So, she read next, her heart now filled with anticipation, like waiting for a theater play that's just about to start. He seemed to understand. Not a lot of people did, especially not here, but he really did. She looked up from the folded paper, right into his eyes, and noticed him pressing his lips tight. The silly boy didn't realize he had already won her over. "Yes," she said, without looking at the paper, but still unfolding it. She was struck by the sense that she would remember this for the rest of her life. Looking right at him, she said, "Whatever's written here, let's do that." Listen, I know I tend to melodrama these things, but in my defense, I tend to melodrama my life as well. Romance is really hard to write. But I think exactly because of that, we, and especially we fantasy writers, we should try it more often. We should challenge ourselves. That's the end of this video. Just a couple of days ago, I was hanging out with a friend of mine, Dwyer, who now is a big YouTuber. Like, it's incredible to see her journey. Goddamn. I asked her a bunch of questions about YouTube and how it feels to have gotten to the place where she is. And that gave me a lot of hope. I really hope that one day I can do this more professionally, that I can take this more seriously. And I'm trying to make the best videos I can. It is a journey and there is luck involved. The best that I do will not guarantee success. It will just increase my chances. But here I am. This is the best I can do, and I hope you really enjoyed this video. As always, a special thank you to my patrons, the people who, more than anybody else, make me think that, hey, one day I might do this professionally, or at least semi-professionally. Thank you for sponsoring this channel at such an early stage. It really means a lot, because I would like this channel to get to a late stage eventually. I would like this channel to be a big thing in my life, and I will do that by pouring a lot of love and energy and attention into it. So that's it, my good folks. I will see you in the next video. Ciao. Let the love shine in.